Alright, let me tell you a story. So there'll be two Death Stars orbiting around the capital planet Hadabadon, and Luke will be sent on the green planet of Sissimon, but then Leia would be captured on the forest moon of Tassaron, and This isn't a weird fanfiction, but the rough draft for Return of the Jedi script. Maybe a bit too complicated and definitely too ambitious budget-wise, Lucas would change that and make the script that we're familiar with today. But as you've seen, right from start, on the early drafts, there was a planet with abundant vegetation, and that is how production went on scouting shooting locations. Actually, the research has started even earlier, before episode 5's release, at the time simply looking for anything exotic. They even considered volcanic regions from Hawaii. Gosh, that would have been sick, you agree? After a long journey spent in helicopters, boats, and seaplanes, production manager Mickey Herman managed to list a few forests in California and around Vancouver. But the location scouting got complicated, as they couldn't go for national parks, since the shooting would involve some explosions and hurt biodiversity. Eventually, private forest from the Miller-Relium Redwood Company, near Crescent City in California, was picked, and then confirmed with a visit by George Lucas himself, producer Howard Kazanjian, and director Richard Macklin, who had inherited from that onerous task. At the same time, the artistic department was working on a design that would become famously polarized: the Ewoks. Among the hundreds of drawings, legendary designer Ralph McQuarrie tried to give them a ferocious aspect. But George Lucas decided to conduct his artists towards a cuter design, which kind of fed up McQuarrie, who handed over the project to Joe Johnson's good care. After many trials, Lucas was finally satisfied with these designs. Then makeup supervisor Stuart Freeborn, whom we met a few times on this channel, began working on the Ewoks costume on those bases. It was a huge task, with no less than 40 Ewoks to dress, which quickly overwhelmed Freeborn, who was also in charge of Jabba. He still managed to do something, so test shooting was put together for the actors to try the costumes and to check how they would look under the new camera and film that were to be used. Thus, pretty much every single little person actor from California was called in for the casting. They were really brave to bear those costumes that severely lacked mobility, and whose eyes fogged up and blinded them. Those modifications were added to the upgrade list, in addition to programming some behavior rehearsals for all the Ewoks. In January 1982, the Teddy Bears made their grand entrance at Elstree Studios, in England. The Ewok village scenes were shot in indoor sets that reproduced Californian canopy. Crew then moved to Arizona for some Tatooine scenes, and then head to Crescent City on the 25th of April. And by day, I mean no less than 71 production members and 40 little persons that producer Jim Bloom saw landing in another packed plane that almost crashed going on the wrong landing strip because of foggy weather. Officially, all those people were here for a low-cost horror movie called Blue Harvest. Why so? Well, to avoid curious people, and most importantly, prices that double as soon as you reveal that you're shooting the next Star Wars. The next day, things were started, and the crew was running through the forest towards the various filming locations which had been set up and given somewhat ambiguous names. There was the bunker, for which the ground had been flattened by bulldozers and the vegetation replanted, the Hard 3, the Spaghetti Stump, Norman's Log, and so on. It was soon realized that some of the larger branches were threatening to fall and cost dearly in Star's life insurance fares. So timbermen were called in to secure the area by cutting down what they called widowmakers. Another arrangement was to place wooden planks whenever 3PO had to walk somewhere, to prevent actor Anthony Daniels from falling because of his uncomfy suit. As for the stormtroopers, they were not that lucky and repeatedly stumbled over the vegetation due to their limited vision. As a further precaution, Chewbacca's actor Peter Mayhew was forbidden to walk alone in his costume, to avoid being mistakenly shot by some hunter. On Sunday, part of the crew went on a fishing party on Smith River, then got surprised by a roaring sound getting closer. It was Harrison Ford, who had rented a speedboat and drove past them to scare away the fish. The actors playing the Ewoks were particularly mischievous. They decided to burst into the canteen in their costumes, pelting the rest of the cast with water bombs. Their next victim was poor production member Ian Bryce, 24 years old, who saw his career flash before his eyes when the bus meant to bring a little person arrived empty and with a letter. Ian, we went to the airport, we've had enough and we're leaving. He rushed to the airport, but his vehicle had a flat tire, and it was at this moment of complete disarray that the Ewoks emerged from their hiding place, wearing Revenge of the Ewoks t-shirts and jumped on their poor victim to mock him. But they were also especially happy to be in such large numbers, which led to a lot of frolicking and got the rest of the production to knock before entering any place in order not to surprise some scenes. On the production side, the atmosphere was slightly less pleasant, with a big argument between producer Howard Kazanjian and set designer Norman Reynolds, who got criticized for waste of money when constructing the whole Ewok bridge instead of just a part of it. One of the Ewok ended up with the legendary fate because of a spoiled chili hot dog.
Oh my goodness!
Yep, the one Kenny Baker, the actor inside R2, had eaten the night before. He was supposed to play the part of the Ewok who finds Leia. Sick because of the sandwich, it is the young Warwick Davis, 11 years old, who had to replace him for that scene, and got his role particularly enhanced. Quickly, the young actor found himself adored by the entire production, for his efforts at such a young age.
I was fortunate to find this one Ewok, this little boy, Warwick Davis, who was so expressive in his suit and had such personality. I mean, he really was 100% into the character. And we couldn't make their mouths move. And actually, Warwick Davis got very good at using his tongue and sticking his tongue out a lot and sort of moving it around. So it really gave the sense that the lips were moving and something was going on there.
Assistant director David Tomlin even filmed a mockumentary about young Warwick's adventures, called Revenge of the Ewoks, in which the cast agreed to play along. That is some deep lost media, so hang on.
Carrie? Hi. Listen, do you know about
Ewoks?
Yeah, Ewoks.
Oh, I know. You should report to Jabba the Hutt's palace. It's full of unusual and wonderful things.
Yeah, that sounds right. Jabba's Palace. That's on stage 8 of that way.
What a dream it must have been for young Warwick to go from fan to actor in this saga.
I don't think anybody on the movie was quite as excited as I was. You know, being an 11-year-old on a Star Wars set, there was no stopping me. The first day I walked onto the set, I think it was probably a bit of a shock to me. You know, Harrison Ford as Han Solo was sitting there with a styrofoam cup, drinking coffee. It was kind of a bit of a strange thing to grasp at that age.
Later on, Warwick Davis would reprise his role for the Ewoks TV movies, before taking on the leading role in Willow, one of Lucas's other projects, and would go on to become an important LucasFilm figure, adored by the fans. Endor is also marked by a now legendary sequence, the speeder bike chase. To convey this impression of speed, George Lucas put Dennis Muren in charge of finding a creative way to pull it off. For a while, he thought about using a jetpack and reached out to the creator and pilot of the jetpack in James Bond Thunderball, and the guy said, yeah, I can do it. Of course, the project quickly got shelved. He then thought about the idea of a miniature set, but it would have had to be massive and way too pricey. So the idea came to him during an initial scouting trip in the Eureka Forest to carry out a test with a small camera, walking through the woods and filming a few frames per minute, then speeding it up. Convinced that it would work, he planned the necessary shots using a small set and some simple G.I. Joe figures. Then set off into the forest in good company, with Garrett Brown, the inventor of the Steadicam that made him famous in Kubrick's Shining. So he went on an exhausting effort to create stable shots respecting the trajectories induced by a speed of 180 km per hour. All with the 13kg camera and Moran shouting instructions to be heard over the noise of gyroscopes.
And the thing actually worked. We put a camera on the Steadicam rig. He walked through at a slow, steady pace, and we shot one frame of film every second. For each step was a 24th of a second. And we got the equivalent of just over 100 miles an hour that way when you played the film back at 24 frames a second. And that meant that I could figure out how to do the whole sequence.
Later, the actors would be shot against blue screen and then composited into the shots filmed in the forest. But the toughest part of Crescent City shooting was for sure the final battle. With 325 people on set, among whom 130 Imperial soldiers and 40 Ewoks, it was a huge sequence, costing around $100K each day. As you can guess, that was enough to stretch crews when a shot failed because the director forgot to color group, or when Ewoks got lost in the forest. A life-size model of an Imperial AT-ST was on site for the shots where it didn't move, but it was miniature when they fought and got destroyed. The battle raged for a long time, with the second shooting team staying on for several weeks while the rest of the production team had left. Yet Harrison Ford was recalled once for the bunker explosion scene, which of course merged real footage and special effects made up by IL. And that's a wrap. Yeah, no burning sun frying the actors, no ice storms burying the sets. It was stressful for the director for sure, but not a big and legendary shooting. From a certain point of view, that shooting looked a bit like a holiday camp. I mean, true, there was mishaps, but nothing in comparison to the shooting in Norway for Hoth or Tunisia for Tatooine that we covered on that channel. Maybe that reveals a lot of things about the quality of episode 6, so I'd like to address that point to finish the video. Indeed, The Return of the Jedi is kinda known for being the black sheep of the original trilogy, with the Endor sequences not particularly appreciated by the fans. What I'm trying to say here is that the two first episodes cast and crew bonded over the shooting on location. And these were abroad travels, while for episode 6 Tatooine was shot in Arizona and Endor right in California, which kept the crew inside a comfort zone. Anyway, whether it was that or just a general burnout after so many years on the same story, it didn't stop episode 6 from having some awesome moments and giving the saga a conclusion that's still iconic decades later.